Hauntcast.
Halloween and horror. Served chilled.
Shocktails.
Welcome into the most notorious backwater gin joint in the entire Netherrealm. It's the last bar on the left. Or should I say, the last bar, hookah lounge, and dispensary on the left. I'm your doorman, Baker. Shamble your arse in here and make your way down to the back booth to meet our bouncer. We call him our bouncer because he bounces his man boobs off the high top. It's our master of ceremonies, Johnny Thunder.
I still have no idea why I let you in here.
You know, because I'm one of the very few paying customers. That's, everybody else comes in here and friggin' mooches off
right,
here.
and you're also one of the very few people that beg me to be on their stupid show periodically. So, you know, I got nothing else going on.
Like, I asked you to be on the stupid show. Next thing you know, you're chained to a radiator in the basement. Can't never get out.
Oh, well, yeah.
Anyway.
Well.
Yeah. Hey, have you ever thought, man, I would love to visit that filming location for the movie that launched the entire franchise of Friday the 13th?
You have got to be kidding.
No? No, you say? Well, too bad. Because JT and I are going to regale you with our tour that we took of the iconic.
Easy for you to say.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
I know. Iconic Camp Crystal Lake, also known as Camp Nobi Bosco in Hardwick, New Jersey. Hey, you from Jersey? You from Jersey? I'm from Jersey. Yeah.
Wow.
Did you guys ever used to? That was like a Boston thing that we used to do as kids. We used to like rag on anytime we'd run into a kid from Jersey. We'd go
really?
like, "Hey, you from Jersey? I'm from Jersey." Yeah. I don't know why.
Really? That's weird,
I don't.
but okay.
Yeah, it was very weird. It was a Boston thing. I don't know.
Apparently,
you wouldn't understand. I don't.
No,
understand.
I mean most of us don't. I was gonna say most of us don't understand anything you've been talking about for about 17 years.
Yeah,
because most of it's a Boston thing.
It's a Massel thing.
Exactly. So we hit up there. What was it like? 20,
was that 3 years ago? Was that three? Like, yeah, it was like 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
It was this month 3 years ago. Hey, do you want to know you kids out there in Fantasyland there? Do you want to you want a little Snapple fun fact? Camp Nobi Bosco stands for the North Bergen, or it's like an abbreviation of the North Bergen Boy Scouts. Camp Nobi Bosco.
That's right.
It's a 380 plus acre camp, opened in 1927.
So how many acres? 380
plus. That's what it
and
says.
More. No,
and 380.
It was our favorite.
More.
And more.
And more. Opened in 1927, making it the oldest continuous operating Boy Scout camp in New Jersey. So they have that going for them. Right. They got that. So, which is actually located on Sand Pond, not Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah, well, again, theater of the mind.
Theater of the mind.
Right.
Yeah, so the tours are pretty cool. I stumbled across this. I don't know. This was when we were on one of our hiatuses or one of our many
Wait, well, I was going to say, you might have to, delineate that for certain aspects. I'm not sure what timeline that falls in.
Yeah, not too sure. It was in between.
One of them.
It was in between our last and the next one that we do. Anyway, so now they offer the so I just was like, doing one of those like looking around at filming locations. I don't know. It was like, hey, June's coming up. It popped into my head. I go, let's start looking at Camp Crystal Lake stuff, and I was on YouTube, and then somebody was doing a video of visiting the camp and doing a tour, and I'm like, oh shit, they do tours,
right? So
that was when I started looking it up. I looked it up, and it was like, holy shit, they do tours there. That is kick ass. And I'm like, Jersey, I could do a trip to Jersey. Anyway, so they do full length walking tours of the entire property. They do short ones, like where you could just do like a lakefront tour. They do the extended tours.
And are there certain events where they do overnight ones?
Yeah, they do a VIP like overnight tour, which would be insane. And they've also done all kinds of over the years. They've hosted numerous reunions of throughout the years with like Adrian King, Tom Savini.
Mm-hmm.
The whole cast. And I don't think Bacon's ever done the reunion. I don't think he has.
Not that I know of. I mean, possibly, but I also dig that they also do a screening usually of the original film, which is really cool.
Anyway, so they do the occasional reunions, and they're open now. They're only opened before and after the Boy Scout season. So usually it's in I think it's in May, June, like just before. I think the Boy Scout camp's there from June and July, July and August. And then they do a fall one where they do a few more tours, and I think in September before it kind of starts to get a little too chilly around there. So it's so. Anyway, I booked the tickets, and I think I contacted you, and it was like you said it was like a hostage thing. It was
my God, dude! Hey, I think literally it was one of those, I've been working from home since 2020, and for whatever reason, I think it was that day I had to be in the office for a client meeting or something or whatever. So I went out to lunch with one of my coworkers, and I'm sitting there, and I looked down at my phone, and you were like, "What are you doing this weekend?" And I was like, I don't know, it's like Wednesday or Thursday. I'm like, I don't know, probably crying and sleeping. And you were like, well, I'm going to book this, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, I guess. I was like, what? Well, you had me at free. You had me at
I think
free tickets.
I said, hey, what do you think about this? And you were like, I don't really think about it or whatever. Okay. And then you
booked it.
I floated it out there. And then the next text back to you was, I booked it. You're going. It was like, I already bought you a ticket. You're going. And you were like, okay. So anyway, so we booked it. The two of us meet up out in what was that area again? That's called that's out there.
It was like East Stroudsburg, wasn't it? Or
so it's up on the basically on the border of Pennsylvania in northern New Jersey. Right. So way up there, and we meet up. And then we head out to
the diner.
The diner. So if you're going to do this tour, you absolutely have to stop off at the Blairstown Diner, right off of Route 94. That's where Steve Christie has his dinner. He's eating, and then he takes off from there, heads back to Crystal Lake. So anyway, I mean, the interior of the place they did a little renovation, but you can still, if you look at the movie, you can still see some of the interior hadn't really changed that much. The exterior didn't change a bit.
I
think the sign on the top, the diner, the neon diner part is gone, but everything else on everything else is exactly the way it was back 40 something years ago.
If you're gonna be in the area or you're going to do the tour, it is just so iconic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to stop, even if you don't go in for a meal, which you should.
Yeah, the food was pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean, it was just so iconic, just even to get a selfie outside.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's the thing. You have to get a selfie outside. But yeah, I thought the food was actually pretty good. I love the old school diners. Every time I'm traveling, I'll avoid the typical Denny's and try to find the hometown diner somewhere, But yeah, that place was cool. So we stopped off, got some food, and it was pretty cool that we were actually headed up there in your Jeep too. That was
right.
You had your Jeep, and we went up, we drove up, and it was the ride from there up. It was like it was like a windy, crazy road, and you get up to the entrance of the camp, and I
was gonna say we had the top down on the Jeep, and when you got through up to where they started directing traffic, it was just this really again, like you see, it's just this desolate one lane each way kind of windy road. And when we started, you made the turn after the security kind of directed you up, like we looked and I was like, oh my God, like, wait, you could see the lake. And, it was, you had a real sense of location.
Yeah, and then they had so they replaced the I think they took the Nobi Bosco sign down.
Yeah.
And then they had the Camp Crystal Lake sign up.
Right.
So you walk in, you see the big Camp Crystal Lake sign, and it was like, oh shit, we're here. It's like, oh.
And I was also going to say, lots of free parking, well directed. Even like the introduction area where they kind of staged the tours. Again, well organized and really great staff. Yeah, they were awesome.
Yeah, the staff was right on top of everything.
Right.
They made it easy. Just kind of, it was like, all right, guys, boom, boom. You start off, you go to the dining hall, which was the start of the movie. You end up in that dining hall where the kids are all singing like Kumbaya or whatever around the campfire. And you go in there, they organize you up. They split us up into different groups because I don't remember how many people there were there, but they split us up into groups of like 8 to 10 people, I think, right?
I'm trying to remember. All I remember is after the, like you had said, the food area, we got, what was like that tumbler with those really cool black coffee.
we got the big water bottle with the Camp Crystal Lake thing on it.
And then you went down, and then like to the left was the little blue Jeep outside of sort of the it was like a little like cabin where it was sort of like I think it was that like a gift shop, and they had the original I think like Camp Crystal Lake sign there, and that was sort of like where the tour officially started.
Yeah, they had Ralph Spike.
Right,
they had the blue Jeep.
Right.
And what else did they have? They had the Crystal Lake sign and like with with like the wooden letters.
Right.
And they had a couple other.
There was like the red truck with like the totem pole. I think it was right.
Oh
there.
yeah. The totem pole, the red truck. So they had a bunch of cool stuff like memorabilia there, which was cool. I don't think it was original from the movie, but it was all exact,
staged
like
the
exact same model truck, the exact same Jeep. The bike and all that. So the totem pole might have been original. I think that might have been original.
Yeah,
anyway,
I can't remember.
Yeah,
I don't remember what happened last weekend. So.
So that's where the tour. Yeah, we start off, and then I think they gave us a chance to like buy some overpriced merch there before we headed out.
We're good.
Yeah, we'll make our way out.
Although I was going to say the ice cream looked good. I just remember there was ice cream.
Yeah, absolutely. So we ended up heading down. I think our first stop is we went down to the archery range.
Yeah.
So they shuffled us down to the archery range.
Yep.
We went down there, and the archery range looked exactly like it did in the movie. There was almost like no change. I realized that I went up, there was like a little incline behind the targets, and I went up to one corner to try to get a shot where I could get the entire archery range in with the targets from like, it was like the top right corner, like there was a little incline. So I went up there, and I realized I'm watching the movie just like the last week, and I'm like, oh shit, that's exactly the camera. It was positioned right there, and I'm like, oh, I took the picture right where the camera was. I know. So
I had a couple moments like that, but they're coming up. So I had the exact, and then that's what's awesome about this, because even though it's a guided tour, each location you had a little bit of time to kind of, just wander around a little bit and you figure out the angles. And like you had said, you'd be like, oh my God, like that's literally this scene and that's literally that scene. So
when you do the extended tour, I mean, they are not bum rushing you through this thing.
No.
They are giving you all the time that you want. Like I was way surprised how much leeway they gave us to wander a little bit, play around. Like we could touch everything. They gave us a lot of freedom. So after that, there really wasn't a hell of a lot to do at the archery range, but we got our pictures in, and now everybody was kind of, all right, we got our fill here.
I think the next location was my absolute favorite.
What was the next stop?
Well, the next stop was we went down that giant hill, and I think it was, unless I'm wrong, I thought the next stop was we wandered over to the one side of the lake with the canoe. Or am I misremembering?
I can't remember. I thought for some reason I thought we stopped at some cabins on the way.
Oh, was the next one the cabin with the showers? Maybe. I thought that was later. Well,
no,
you know
that
what?
was right. No, that's fine. That was right after we did the lake.
Okay.
Once we did the lake, that when we were walking back.
Well, see, to me, yeah, I was going to say. Go ahead.
From what I remember, and I could be wrong here, we headed down to see some cabins, and they were basically nothing too spectacular. It was one of the cabins where they shot the kids. This was at the beginning of the movie where they showed this. It was like the 1950 era kids. They were all sleeping in their cots, and they just kind of did like a quick little walk through, like Mrs. Voorhees was going through and looking, all the kids were kind of asleep. And then we made our way down, and then they and
it's like the classic, the classic scene.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we're on the other side of the lake, the opposite side from like where the what is it, the lifeguard tower kind of thing was. Right. So you're actually looking at the lake from where Mrs. Voorhees was spying on them from the other side of the lake, where they were like, "Hey, what's that over there?" And they're like, "Oh, it's nothing." It was over in that area. So yeah, you get to see the canoe is like floating right in the
and the finale.
50 yards out. Yeah, the finale.
That's the
scene.
Finale. And there was also, do you remember sort of the guide? There was also a cabin up on the hill that they were talking about. And I don't know if it was in the movie, but it was just sort of like part of like, kind of the lore and the history of the park. But they also, do you remember they kind of did, they did something funny with sort of an effect with the water.
Yeah,
remember where it was
they had like a little pump thing where they pressed it and the bubbles came up from Jason was under the water.
Right at the very end. And it was so cool because, like I said, I'm actually looking at the pictures right now that I had taken, and it was just like you had said. You're like, oh my god, like that is. Like, to me, that's my favorite scene in the whole movie. The very, very end where little Jason jumps up over the final girl at the end in the canoe. And it was just so cool.
Yeah. So after we kind of hung out there, and along the way, they're asking us questions. They're testing our trivia knowledge to see, how much we know about the movie and some of the stories and everything. So it was kind of cool. So do you remember what was the guy's name? Was it Eli or who was our tour guide? Anyway,
I do not remember, but he was great. He was
great.
Really
he had
cool.
a ton of knowledge. So, he was asking us questions.
And I think he also was involved with Scouts, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was a great guy.
All right. So after we did that, then we made our way around. The next stop is the shower. Definitely where we stopped into the shower.
Right.
Where they shot the shower scene, the bathroom scene, that was actually just a regular cabin that they cleared out, and then they built with plywood all of the shower stalls in there. And I guess they grabbed a bunch of sinks and attached them to the wall. There was only one working sink in the entire place, the one that she ends up using. So yeah, you get to go in there and you're in the same, you can go into the stall where she gets axed in there. It was like Marcy, right? She gets axed in the head.
But I was going to say, what's so cool about that is again, in your head, you're thinking oh, it's this giant cabin and it's all these and literally again, it's kind of they're just building things on the fly and they're not necessarily thinking about or having the budget for any sort of permanent structure, right?
Yeah.
They're just making do with what they have and they made the film and, there it is. But you walk in and you're like, oh, wow, that's weird. That was one of those I was like, wow, that was not disappointing, but it was just sort of, it really showed the ingenuity that they had to film on the budget that they had in the location they had. But again, when you're going there, you're like, oh, okay, and it's kind of cool again to see how they made it work for the film.
Mm-hmm. There was one thing I couldn't put my finger on. I was like, why do the interiors of these cabins all look so different? And I was like, what, something's off here. I couldn't figure out what it was. And I can't remember if I asked, someone brought it up. And then we were told, oh yeah, by the way, so yeah, all of the because when we're in the cabins, all of they're all like almost like log cabins. So the interior is all just natural, like log, like wood color,
Right.
And I was like, why did the movie look different? They had to paint the entire interiors of all the cabins due to like lighting or the filming. I guess it was too dark. With the regular wood, that they needed something that was a little bit brighter. So they actually ended up painting the interior. So when you see the movie, you'll notice that all the walls, everything is like this really off color, like really light green color or something.
Right.
And when you go into the regular cabins now, and then they strip that all off right after the movie. So when you see the cabins now or see pictures of them, that's not there. So that's why that looks different. And I was like, oh, cool. All right. Now that makes sense. Anyway, so.
Well, I thought after that, I thought you went around to the other side, and I thought we went to the beach.
Yeah, we did. We went over to the beach, and then they allowed you to say, "Hey, yeah, if you want to grab some water from Camp Crystal Lake, go ahead and grab some sand and water." Now, since they just gave us a water bottle, I went over like, "Oh, awesome!" And I filled up my water, not the whole thing, but I scooped up about half them. I still have the water in another jar. I transferred it to just a basic little jar and put it. I have it stashed away on a shelf over here, but yeah.
But again, I was going to say what's interesting is I think they also mentioned that with just erosion from the water, didn't they say like the beach is like half or like a third of what it had been at the filming?
Well, yeah, because the water level was so much higher that's we couldn't go over to the little boathouse area there because it was all the water was like right up to it. So he's like, yeah, you can't like walk over there. So yeah, and the beach, yeah, where they fought, where Mrs. Voorhees and Alice did battle. Yeah, there was a lot less beach there because the water was just way too high. You can basically just kind of hang around on the beach. You pretend that you were killing Mrs. Voorhees if you wanted to. From there, he explained too. He's like, right, yeah, on the other side of the cabin, that when Ned was by himself and he was like walking around balancing on the wood, and then he's like, oh, and he's like, he saw a body, Mrs. Voorhees, go into that cabin, and then he stupidly went in to follow her, like, hey, can I help you?
Right.
That cabin, it was like that cabin, I think another cabin next to it that was there used for those exterior shots, I guess, was ravaged by time, and they ended up like pretty much disintegrating. They ended up having to tear them down, or they burnt down. Something happened to them in the cabins. Were no longer.
I think they just kind of.
I think they would just. Yeah, I think it was just a ravage of time, and they ended up having to tear them down and get rid of them. So.
But then I think the one after that was the really cool one with the where they were playing like poker and they were drinking.
Yeah, the main cabin. Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, where they were smoking the devil's lettuce in there and drinking the little beers and little strip Monopoly. Oh, there. Oh, yeah.
The movie, not us.
Yeah, so it was really cool because in the main cabin, like they had put out as many props as they could. They had the Monopoly board on the table. They had the guitar over by the fireplace. Little old bottles of Budweiser on the table. They had the rope that. From the rafter that Alice used to tie up the door handle, when she was running from Mrs. Voorhees later in the movie. We got to go into the little kitchen area that was in there, and then he explained to us because he opened the door in the kitchen. It didn't lead to a pantry.
Right.
It led just outside. And they explained, what they needed to have like a pantry in here for one of the scenes for like Ralph to pop out of.
Messenger of God, you're doomed if you stay here.
And then for Alice to hide at the end of the movie. So they just built like a little shanty off the backside of the cabin and made it look like a pantry. And they just improvised to make it work because they needed that room. They needed that pantry for her to hide in and stuff. So, and the kitchen looked exactly the same, pretty much. And then from the kitchen, obviously I got a ton of pictures in there, but yeah, we got the whole, photo op. You do all that. We head out from there. Then, where did we go after that? Do you remember?
Wait, where do you kill the snake?
That might have been the next stop along the way. I think we just like went across the way, and there was those other cabins, and that was the one.
Up the hill or something. Yeah,
and that was the one where they had the snake in it. I'm trying to think if that was the snake the one that they had the axe in as well. They had the axe in the bed. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So and so they had the axe and the cot, and actually in each cabin they had like screenshots like blown up on poster board. So you'd go,
which kind of
so you could go in here and be like, oh, this is what happened here. So you kind of knew exactly which cabins you were in. Obviously the one with the axe was pretty easy to figure out. Then they had the snake.
Easy for you to
they had the rubber snake prop on the ground, and they give you like a little dull-edged machete, and you could pretend you're chopping the snake. And the guy's like, "Hey, does anybody?" The tour guide was like, "Hey, does anybody want to pretend to chop the snake?" And everybody's like, "No, I'm good." And I'm like, "Give me that thing!" I'm like, get some pictures of this bitch over here. You chopping up this snake. So, yeah, I think the next stop was when we went to the cabin where Jack got the surprise tracheotomy. And they had all the props in there on the nightstand. They had, like, the book. Just everything like just as what was on his nightstand that night. I think they even had like a little fake J in there, if I'm not mistaken. That room was pretty cool, but I don't think there was too much else to do in there. I
don't think there was a lot of action.
Yeah,
in
they
that
just had like the cot. They had the little nightstand with a few props on it, and the picture where Jack met his demise. Yep.
Gets it.
Then from there, let's see. I think we covered most of the filming locations at that point.
Yeah, I think there was like some kind of a big barn situation.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. That was the storage shed. It was called, and that was where Barry and Claudette were bumping uglies in there, or trying to at least.
And it was sort of like it was again. It's funny how, like we said, it's awesome that they have all these locations, they stage them, but again, in real life, you're like, oh my god, it's like so much smaller, or it's so much different, or it's not what you expect.
Actually,
cool,
I was surprised when I went up. You got to go up the stairs to where Barry and Claudette where they were on this upper
it was
like a loft, right?
Yeah.
And you went up there, and there was like this little mattress thrown down on the ground.
We weren't doing anything. We were just messing around.
And they had like a sign, like another of the Camp Crystal Lake like signs and some other stuff, like random stuff around there. But it was actually really cool. It was when I was up there, it was like very surreal because it was pretty much the opening scene of the movie. The first kill ever in a Friday the 13th franchise. So I'm like, holy shit! It was really eerily cool.
You were up there ignoring the campers and making love.
Not exactly love. Getting his rocks off,
Oh man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really, really great experience. And at the end,
wait a minute. There was one more stop though. There was one more stop.
What was the last one?
The generator shed
generator
was the last
shed.
one.
That's right.
Because it was right next to the storage shed.
That's
so you walk basically around the corner, you go to the generator shed, and that was one cool set. They had a bunch of arrow dull tipped arrows or like rubber arrows or something, and you could pretend to be what's his name, Bill? Was it Bill who got stuck to the door? Who got arrowed to the door?
I'll go with
Harry.
Bill.
It was like Harry
don't
Crosby or
remember.
something. Yeah, it was Bill who got arrowed
Okay.
to the door, so you could stick them under your armpits and like be up against the door and pretend that you
that's
like
right, that's right, that's
you got
right, that's
killed on
right.
the door. And I think
Right.
that was it. Now, before we went to the shed, I remember like because we were there for now hours, and your legs were getting blown out. So before we went off to the shed, we ended up accommodating a golf cart.
Yes, we did. We acquisitioned a golf cart. That's the only thing I would say. If you do have any physical limitations, like I said, I like a bum knee, like I'm at a certain point, it just got, and that's the other thing. It's a very large property. Like it's a very expansive park. Like Chris said, it's, 4,000 blah, 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 acres of, stuff. It's a very long, and it's downhill, uphill, around hill, different things. So it's awesome. But by the same token, like you had said, after like 2.5+ hours, I was just sort of like, that's what somebody's like, hey, we have golf carts. It's like, yeah, cool. I would pay like $25 extra to like just take the whole golf cart tour.
I should have asked them. That could have been an option. I don't even know. That could have been an option.
Right? Yeah, it was. But like I said, it was an awesome experience and nothing that I had even ever planned. And again, as a horror fan, as a haunting fan, it was just like a great impromptu, kind of trip. And it was cool to go there with you and just hang out and see all the, behind the scenes and how things are done. So again, like I said, if you're a horror fan, you're a haunting fan, you're just a fan of Halloween, I think it's well worth it.
I absolutely, it was one of the coolest things I've done in quite a while. Like I remember getting back, even though I had to take a 6-hour ride or whatever it was to Jersey and 6-hour back. And oh my God, I hit traffic trying to come back over the Washington Bridge and all this other nonsense. Even after all that frustration, I got back, I still was like, that was one of the best things I've done in a long time. Like, it was a blast. By the way, we ended up doing, you can go different time frames you could do like an afternoon. You can do, we did the night tour, which I would highly recommend because when we got through in June, it got dark about 8 or 8:30. We were still there until we were there until like 11 o'clock or something, right?
Yeah, dude. Because we didn't do you remember? Because we didn't get back to the hotel until like midnight or something.
Yeah. So I think we left there. I think we were leaving about 11 o'clock. So a big portion of the tour, you're walking around the camp in the dark with flashlights and like they had lights, scattered around the.
And I even remember, I think you were at the one cabin, and after the sunset, I walked back down to the lake, and like you had said, just standing there in the dark with just sort of like a little bit of light from, this cabin, that cabin, the canoe was lit up, and I was like, wow, like it actually got a little creepy. It got creepy.
There was nothing crazier than when you look across the lake and you can, that little hill that you see on the other side. Right. It just like you're looking at it, you're like, oh my God, I am in the movie. It is crazy,
dude. And I was gonna say, and that's why I said, you look up, you got the stars, we had the moon, you heard like crickets, and it was crazy. Yeah, especially after dark.
Now,
I totally agree.
I don't think you did any of this. You can go also after the tour's over, or if you're in the area, you can also hit a bunch of other filming locations around.
After our gourmet breakfast at the Dunkin' Donuts next to the hotel, I hauled ass back home. But you hit up a bunch.
I didn't hit them all. I just hit up a couple. I went down to the Blair's, the Main Street Blairstown, and I ended up where Annie, at the beginning, when they introduce Annie, and she's in that Blairstown area. She walks under that that weird archway building. I actually went in and walked through the archway, just where she walked through. Took a bunch of pictures there. There's also another shot where she comes down, where you show her coming down around this kind of bend right on that Main Street area. so that I got a bunch of pictures of that. So they were all like right next to each other. And then ended up going over to the Moravian cemetery. Moravian, which is over in Hope. Not far. I mean, it was like a 20-minute, wasn't quite 30 minutes. I think it was maybe about a 20-minute ride from there, and went over the Moravian cemetery and took some pictures there. That's where Annie gets dropped off, and has to walk on foot until she gets picked up by Mrs. Voorhees. But yeah, so I got a couple of extra little pictures there before I head back out. So if you're also going to do the tour and be in the area, hit up the Blairstown Diner, go over to Hope, go to the Moravian Cemetery, go to Main Street, Blairstown, take a couple of extra shots. You can there might be a few other things around, but those are the only ones that I thought were interesting enough. And do not stay at the hotel that's over in the Delaware.
And do not stay at our hotel.
Whatever that's called.
We have enough problems. I don't think we need a lawsuit. Just let's just leave it at that. Just vet your accommodation.
Exactly. You might want to look at the reviews or how many stars it actually gets, because I guess that could make a difference, which I didn't do when I booked that room.
No.
One thing you could say is you didn't have to pay for it, at least. You know what I mean? So.
It was free, and I only woke up with 4 bed bug bites, so I was thankful. It was over. It was like 20 over under, and 4 was not bad.
So anyway, to wrap this nonsense up, how many machetes would you give this?
I would give it 5 machetes. How about that?
I would give it 5 out of 5 machetes.
There you go.
And the tickets were, I think, I think I looked at it today to see it was about $139, like about $140 to do the extended tour. You might think it's steep, but you're there for like 3-something plus hours, and you cover every single crevice of that camp. So,
and that's also, it's kind of one of those like once in a lifetime, because again, it was awesome. I wouldn't do it again, like, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I thought it was awesome.
It was a one and done, but it was a very good
But I'm saying,
one
but it's
and done.
very much worth the price. So I think it's like, well, like you had just said, it might be a little steep, but it's an experience, and I think it's money well spent.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was awesome, especially, like I said.
Definitely when you didn't have to spend the money.
Well,
that's
free
okay.
Free is my favorite flavor.
Dude, you've been doing this nonsense with me for like 15 years. I felt like I owed you at least something,
Wow, I finally got something out of this.
You got at least one good experience from dealing with me for 15 years.
Instead of having to watch you puke in a closet or wake you up in a movie theater and drive your ass back from Phoenixville and tell you we have to evacuate in a fire alarm at the Hunters Con.
Exactly. All right, so if you want to go do this thing,
go do it.
Go do it. Go to crystallaketours.com. Got it? Go buy yourself a ticket. They do them in the at the beginning of the summer and at the end of the summer. So you have to get in either in like May, June, or in September if you want to do them. You have to book in advance. They do sell out. They do book out. And tell them that Johnny and Baker sent you. And
also, I would say before you go, even as big as a buff or big as a horror fan you are, rewatch Friday the 13th. Refresh your memory about all the locations, about all your favorite scenes, and you will get so much more out of it because it is really, really a rad experience.
You got it, man. Baker and Thunder approved.
There you go. What more could you...
2 severed thumbs up.
All right, everybody. As always, thank you for listening. This is Johnny Thunder with...
Baker.
Reminding you to stay scary and... happy Friday the 13th.
Please follow the podcast. Give us a 5-star review. Stalk us on social media. Links in the description. And visit our blog page for more show info at hauntcastpodcast.net/blog. Until next time, stay scary.
I got to warn you. You're doomed if you stay. Go. Go.